Going back to the mountain, Han Sen saw the sacred blood creature under the tree, its hands still on the hilt of the diamond sword and its eyes closed again. He did not have time to pay attention in daytime. Now under moonlight and starlight, he noticed how gorgeous this creature was. It was definitely a she. The jade armor covered her body, yet still showed off her long legs and curves. The white wings and long wavy hair accentuated her beautiful facial features. Pretty yet aloof, she was really like an angel. Had he not seen how well she fought, Han Sen would even be reluctant to hurt such a beautiful creature. She is so strong. I only have one chance. If I don't succeed, I might not even be able to escape. Han Sen was considering which beast soul he should use. A sacred blood beast soul armor would not be enough. It might keep him alive, but what he needed now was to kill the creature. The fairy queen was summoned. Han Sen's body was covered in red armor and the ruby crown appeared on his head. His black hair became blonde. Han Sen also summoned the horn bow and mutant black stinger arrow. Han Sen was confident in his ability to hide his intentions, but when he aimed at the creature, she suddenly opened her eyes full of golden lightning bolts. Whoosh! The diamond sword was drawn from the rock and cut at Han Sen. Han Sen did not shoot the black stinger arrow. He did not dare to. Once the arrow was cut by the sword, it would be ruined. This arrow had cost Han Sen a lot of efforts and Han Sen would not want it to be ruined like the mutant spear and chopper. Watching the sacred blood creature approaching him, he felt she did not seem as fast as she was. The ability of the fairy queen had turned the actions of the creature into slow motion in his eyes. Watching the sword cutting at himself, Han Sen suddenly took back his bow and arrow and made an incredibly fast move. Spartacle. The footwork that Han Sen had been working hard on was eventually put to use. Even the sacred blood creature's sword was not fast enough to follow his body. Instead of stepping back, Han Sen narrowed the distance between him and the creature. The sacred blood butterfly boomerang appeared in Han Sen's hand and was thrown at the creature. With an unlikely trajectory, the boomerang approached the creature in the blink of an eye and was about to cut her throat. However, even at such a short distance, the sacred blood creature was still able to take back her sword and slash it at the butterfly boomerang. The moment before the sword touched the boomerang suddenly made an incredible dive and then cut the creature's throat from below. Boom! The horrifying blue fire exploded and covered the entire body of the sacred blood creature. It almost looked like she was going through a nirvana. This angel was not a friendly one. Bathing in fire, she was still trying to attack Han Sen. Using both Fairy Queen and Spartacle, Han Sen was able to dodge all her attacks. In fact, the creature's speed and strength were no longer comparable to before because of her injury. She gradually slowed down and her sword fell to the ground with a clank. Her body turned into lights and scattered like fireflies. Sacred blood creature Holy Angel killed. Beast soul of sacred blood Holy Angel gained. Meat and edible. She really is an angel. Han Sen was excited. He was not too surprised by the fact that the meat was edible. He had read before online that the sacred blood creatures on the Mystery Island were most likely inedible. Wrapping the diamond sword with the cloth he had prepared, Han Sen left the Mystery Island in the dark. Son of Heaven must still be thinking how to kill the Holy Angel. There is no way that he would know that I've killed it. I'm really curious to see his face when he has prepared everything and find no creature there. Han Sen returned to Steel Armor Shelter in a great mood. Putting the diamond sword on the table, he couldn't wait to check out his newly gained beast soul of Holy Angel. A teenage girl with long dark hair stood barefoot in front of Han Sen, wearing a white dress, her eyes blinking. Beast soul pet. Another one. Looking at the Holy Angel in the form of a pretty little girl, Han Sen did not know how to react. This was such a big change. She had lost her wings and halo. You could not even tell that she was an angel. There was nothing fearful about her and she looked just like a cute human girl. Despite her cuteness, she could not fight at all. He did not even know how long it would take for a sacred blood beast soul pet to transform. Fortunately, Han Sen also had gained sacred blood gear, the diamond sword, otherwise he would be very upset. After all, he had traded one katana, 2 mutant weapons, and a sacred blood butterfly boomerang for the sacred blood pet. One thing was for sure, the sacred blood Holy Angel was worth a lot of money. Sacred blood pets were rare, and a pet as cute as this one, which looked almost exactly like a human, could be sold at a great price, maybe even higher than the price of any practical sacred bloods. Can you talk? Han Sen looked at the Holy Angel and asked. She looked so much like a pretty human girl. The Holy Angel widened her eyes and smiled at him, looking innocent. Seeing that she could not talk, Han Sen took her back and took up the gorgeous diamond sword. The diamond sword was like an ice sculpture and was slightly heavier than a steel sword. Han Sen waved the sword around and thought it was very smooth to use. What a great sword. It is very much worth what it has cost me. Han Sen felt more and more at ease waving the sword around, thinking it was easier to use than the katana. As for the sharpness and toughness of the sword, there was no question, since it could cut through his sacred blood armor. Even the sacred blood shield of Thumbs was left with deep marks, whereas the sword itself was still intact. It was easy to imagine how good it was. It is such a shame that the sword could not be taken back like a sacred blood beast soul. I could only carry it with me and use it here in God's sanctuary, Han Sen thought. The sword had a very memorable look. Since Son of Heaven, Huang Fu Pinking and Thumb had all seen it, it would be a lot of trouble if he wanted to use it in the future. He could only use it when he pretended to be Dollar. Otherwise any of them could guess that Han Sen was Dollar. Leaving God's sanctuary, Han Sen's comlink immediately rang. Seeing Huang Fu Pinking's number, Han Sen bristled. It was because of this woman that his girlfriend was still mad at him. Having answered the call, he wanted to talk some sense into Huang Fu Pinking, teaching her right from wrong. While he just opened his mouth, he was rendered speechless. Huang Fu Pinking was in a bubble bath, covered under foam. He could only see her arms and the top of her globes, which still made his heart race. "Brother Han, am I interrupting something?" As she asked, she lifted one of her legs and started to caress it. Han Sen felt his nose was about to bleed. He touched his nose and said seriously, "Miss Huang Fu Pinking, do you need me for something? If not, I have to go." Han Sen could not help throwing another glance at her leg. "Of course I need you. Did you know that there is a mystery island floating above the steel armor shelter now?" Huang Fu Pinking smiled sensually. "Of course I know that. But I could never go up there since I do not have sacred blood wings." Han Sen became nervous. "That's a problem easy to solve. I can lend you a flying beast soul." Huang Fu Pinking turned around in the water and moved closer to the comlink. Looking at the close-up of her white globes, he was about to explode. Han Sen said hurriedly, "Don't joke with me. Why would you lend me such a precious sacred blood? I am not joking. If you want it, you can come and get it right now. My door is open," Huang Fu Pinking said, blinking. "You could say what you want here and now." Han Sen did not believe Huang Fu Pinking would be so generous. "Since you won't come over, we should find somewhere to discuss. How about the cafeteria in Section A?" Huang Fu Pinking said. "No, I'd rather talk in the shelter." Since this was breakfast time, if someone saw Huang Fu Pinking and him together, he could never prove his innocence. Although Huang Fu Pinking was sexy and as pretty as Jai Yanran was more Han Sen's type. Huang Fu Pinking was too cunning. Even though she looked great, it was tiring to talk to her. When she first came to Steel Armor Shelter, she pretended not to know Son of Heaven, so that the young master could help raise the price of many beast souls. The sacred blood flying beast soul was thus sold at a high price to Lin Beifeng. Because of the appearance of the Mystery Island, Son of Heaven had to buy it back from Lin, who ended up making some money. Such a woman would not invite him to a date for no reason. She must want to discuss with him the sacred blood creature on the Mystery Island. He knew that Holy Angel was gone now, which other people were not aware of, and they were still preparing to hunt the creature. "Maybe I can even gain something from this," Han Sen said to himself. However, he was still not sure how Son of Heaven and Huang Fu Pinking knew each other. This time Son of Heaven had spent several hundred million on buying the sacred blood flying beast soul from Lin Beifeng and borrowing a sacred blood shape-shifting humanoid beast soul from Qin Xuan, in addition to the price he paid to hire Han Sen and Thumb. All of his efforts were for the beast soul of this sacred blood creature on the island. Han Sen simply took the sacred blood flying beast soul and a sacred blood beast soul arrow Huang Fu Pinking lent him, and followed all instructions of Son of Heaven quietly. Secretly, Han Sen was amused. "Son of Heaven, you've spent so much effort. When you land on the Mystery Island and find the sacred blood creature gone, I wonder how you would look." Everything was ready and Son of Heaven took Thumb and Han Sen to fly towards the Mystery Island again. When they arrived at the island, Son of Heaven did not go immediately into the mountain, but let the team rest for half a day so that they were all prepared and energetic. For this humanoid creature's beast soul, Son of Heaven had considered everything. Han Sen did not say a word and simply followed what Son of Heaven said. He was only looking forward to seeing Son of Heaven's disappointment when he found that the Holy Angel was gone. At last, Son of Heaven led Han Sen and the Thumb into the mountain. Where is the sacred blood creature? From afar, Son of Heaven used binoculars to watch the top of the mountain, but did not see the Holy Angel. Son of Heaven accelerated towards the mountain, but did not see a trace of the creature at all. Feeling reluctant, Son of Heaven circled around the mountain top and asked Thumb and Han Sen to search elsewhere on the island, but in the end, they found nothing. "Dollar, I will kill you." Son of Heaven bristled and gave up in the end. He hated this person even more than he did a murderer. On the way back, Son of Heaven's face was dark. It seemed that his anger had controlled him completely. Hansen would not provoke him, but was dying with laughter inside. Back in his room at the shelter, Hansen summoned the three-blade harpoon and tried it out. He loved how it felt in his hand and could not wait to fight a sacred blood creature with this weapon. It is time that I go to the Devil Desert again. With this three-blade harpoon, the sacred blood Fox King and black-feathered Beast King could no longer escape from me. Hansen was excited, but before he went to the Devil Desert, he had received a message from King Xuan, who asked Hansen to see her. Her voice is a bit weird and she did not mention what it was regarding, which made Hansen feel puzzled. It should not concern the special squad, otherwise she would just say it. Hansen could not think of anything King Xuan would need him to do. At the same time, King Xuan was holding some paperwork and had a strange look on her face. Why would Professor Bai from the Saint Hall choose Hansen? King Xuan muttered to herself as she read. Such a big shot as Bai Yishan would like to transfer Hansen to work for the Saint Hall as his assistant. When he contacted the management of the special squad, they were all quite shocked. Feeling equally surprised was King Xuan. At the same time, she felt more confident about her choice of talent. Come in. King Xuan saw Hansen was outside her office and said. Hansen was the biggest gem that she had found in Steel Armor Shelter. He was a little greedy and cowardly, but his growth was faster than she had expected from him. Seeing King Xuan smiling at him, Hansen felt a bit scared. Hansen, you have done well recently. King Xuan smiled at Hansen. Under your guidance, Hansen said quickly. Well said. King Xuan's smile became brighter. This made Hansen more nervous. He cleared his throat and said, so why have you called me here? So Professor Bai Yishan from the Saint Hall wants you to work as his assistant. Do you want to go? Without further ado, King Xuan told Hansen what has happened. A professor from the Saint Hall wants me as his assistant. Hansen paused and realized that he had nothing to do with the Saint Hall. And Professor Bai was also a stranger. It is many people's dream to work for the Saint Hall, not to mention under Professor Bai Yishan. It is a great opportunity and you should think about it. King Xuan grinned. She wanted to make Hansen her successor, but if he did not want the same thing she did, there was no point in keeping him. What do you think? Hansen looked at King Xuan and asked. He felt it was a bit weird, since he had never even heard of this professor. So, you think I should go? Hansen pondered. On the contrary, I hope you could stay. King Xuan shook her head and said, you know that I have high hopes for you. Of course I wish that you could continue to stay on the squad. In a couple of months, I will become an evolver and enter Second God's Sanctuary. I will recommend you as my successor to lead the squad. Alright then, I'll pass and follow you. Hansen said decisively. In the Saint Hall, there might be a lot of benefits, but he still sensed something fishy about this. In addition, he was practicing Jadeskin. If he walked around experts of Hyper-Geno arts all day, they might be able to tell that. Hansen believed that based on his credentials and knowledge, he was more likely to become a guinea pig in a place like the Saint Hall. He would not go even if King Xuan did not try to keep him on the squad. And now he was also doing King Xuan a favor, so that was two birds with one stone. King Xuan's eyes lit up. She did not expect Hansen to agree so fast and give up a great opportunity because of what she had said. You're great. I chose the right man. King Xuan was excited and patted Hansen on the shoulder. Keep up the good work. Although leading the squad might not be as glamorous now, you would have a harder time at the Saint Hall because of the glass ceiling there. I assure you that you would never regret today's decision. I did not think that far. As long as I can follow you, that's good enough for me, Hansen said quickly. King Xuan blushed and the thought of Hansen's words when she hypnotized him. Well then, I won't keep you here. Watching Hansen leave, she thought, he was just too young, otherwise I might consider him as a suitor. Hey girl, you're so good at this. Hansen found Jai Yanran soon. There were better players than Jai Yanran on campus, but only a few, and they either did not want to beat her or did not play on Battle.net at all. It's not fun playing on campus. I'm playing on the Skynet platform. This player's good. He has beaten me 3 times, each time by 10+ points, said Jai Yanran. Which virtual room are you in? Let me avenge you. Hansen was ready to sit at one of the holographic equipment. Use my account. Jai Yanran got up and offered him her seat. Hansen sat down, but pulled her back into his laps. Let go. Jai Yanran blushed and pretended to struggle. Stop. If you leave, how can you see justice served? Hugging her from the back, Hansen invited that player to continue to play. How can you move like this? If you lose, I will not forgive you, said Jai Yanran. That's not a problem. This is the unevolved section, and I will not lose even with my eyes closed, Hansen said. Such an egoist, Jai Yanran teased him. This is confidence. If you don't believe that I will win, let's make a bet. If I win, you need to kiss me. Han Sen laughed. And if you lose? Jia Yanren curled her lips. If I lose, I will kiss you. Han Sen said shamelessly. Nice try. Just do well. You must be Jia Yanren from Blackhawk. Seeing the message, Han Sen looked to his girlfriend suspiciously. The latter shook her head and was at loss. The platform randomly matched me with him. I don't even recognize this ID. Could he be from our school? Han Sen checked the ID name, which was quite arrogant, the third hand of God. Just reply to ask if he's from our school. We don't have a lot of players at this level and I know all of their ID names. This one is not one of them, said Jia Yanren. When Han Sen was ready to reply, he saw another message from the opponent. I am Lu Baodao from the Hand of God Society at Alliance Central Military Academy. My nickname is Three-Handed King. You should have heard about me. Jia Yanren was surprised. The Three-Handed King from the Alliance Central Military Academy is among the top 10 in the Military Academy League. I wonder how he found out about my ID name. No matter how he found that out, I will not let a guy who had his eyes on my girlfriend off the hook easily. Han Sen grinned and sent a message over. I will not make friends with those who are weaker than I. Lu Baodao sent a message back. I have just beaten you 4 times, each time by more than 10 points. And you call that weak? I was eating just now and have just finished, replied Han Sen. Haha, okay then. We'll play another round. And let's see what you say when you lose again, said Lu Baodao, sending an invite to fight. Han Sen clicked yes without hesitation and the countdown started. What are you doing? Jia Yanren smiled and asked. Nothing, just to remove all his desires to play the game Hand of God. He has to pay for wanting to steal you, Han Sen said with his eyes narrowed. Jia Yanren did not speak but blushed. She felt sweet at heart and enjoyed watching her boyfriend getting jealous. Lu Baodao was overjoyed. Last year, he watched the promotion videos of the Hand of God societies from all military schools and was stunned by a beautiful female player named Jia Yanren. However, Blackhawk did not compete against the Alliance Central Military Academy and was not even among the top 8. So, there was no chance for him to meet Jia Yanren. Lu Baodao had to ask around to find out Jia Yanren's ID on the Skynet gaming platform. When he wanted to friend her, he found that her privacy setting was set to reject all friend requests. Lu Baodao had almost forgotten about that bummer and was suddenly randomly matched with Jia Yanren today by the system. He did not notice it was her in the beginning and thought his opponents had good techniques. That was when he checked her ID and found out it was Jia Yanren's. Holding back his joy, he beat her a few times to show off his power before he texted her and asked if she was Jia Yanren. Learning it was her, Lu Baodao was even more excited. He was prepared to show her how strong he was, and hopefully he would be able to earn her heart. When he was about to touch the spot, a finger suddenly crushed it and his opponent gained a point. Well done, you're offering her points early on. Liang Yiming thought Lu Baodao did it on purpose. Had to, Lu Baodao said reluctantly. It was not part of his plan. I should pay more attention. Lu Baodao still thought he was just being careless and reached toward another spot. Before he hit the spot, the finger once again crushed it. Lu Baodao panicked a little as his opponent had beaten him to all the spots he wanted to hit 8 times in a row, leaving him with no point. Baodao, this is a little extreme. The beauty's level is okay. Be careful or you might even lose. Liang Yiming still thought Lu Baodao was doing this on purpose. Lu Baodao, however, was no longer in the mood to joke around. He was completely focused on the game, with his forehead sweaty. He did not want to let his opponent win, but lost nonetheless. Very soon, Liang Yiming could tell that something was wrong. Blue veins stood out on Lu Baodao's temple, and his fingers were dancing like crazy. Still, no point was gained, and the other hand in the holographic image could always hit the spot first. Liang Yiming widened his mouth. He knew very well how good Lu Baodao was. Although Lu Baodao was relatively weak among the Alliance Central Military Academy players, he would be absolutely the first place in any other military school. However, until now, Lu Baodao still had not gained a single point, which was almost unbelievable. In the 100-point game, the opponent had already gained 80 points, while Lu Baodao still had nothing. At this point, Lu Baodao was covered in cold sweat. His movements became stiff due to too much pressure. The hand of his opponent was like a devil's hand in Lu Baodao's eyes. Although the military school would teach Hyper-Geno arts, there were nothing advanced. However, the military school students had certain benefits when it came to purchasing Hyper-Geno arts. After graduation, it would depend on their achievements in the army whether they could buy more advanced Hyper-Geno arts. Different from the St. Hall, the Hyper-Geno arts sold in military schools came with only 1 bottle of Geno solution, and the D-class arts and under did not require any Geno solution. Both Jai Yanran and Kalili were juniors, and according to the rules they could purchase 2 B class and 4 C class ones. Hansen could also purchase 1 C class at this point. However, he was not interested in the less advanced Hyper Geno arts after seeing Holy Angel and Spartacle. King Xuan still owes an S-class license. How can I try to retrieve it? Hansen kept thinking about it but had no good solutions. King Xuan asked to get it in the steel armor shelter. However, it would be so dangerous with the strong guys and Son of Heaven in the shelter who hated Dollar's guts. The 3 of them came to the school's Hyper Geno art store, and there was no shop assistant but all vending machines. The tutorials were up for download after payment, and the Geno solutions would pop from the vending machines. Jai Yanran, what do you think I should buy? Kalili could not decide. Genius, give me some advice, she then said to Hansen. Maybe you could try the B-class Momentum and Windbreak. A strange voice next to them sounded. The 3 students looked to the direction of the voice and saw a well-dressed, mild-tempered middle-aged guy. He seemed to be at most 50 years old. How do you know that those 2 suit me? Kalili looked to the middle-aged guy in surprise. He smiled and replied, the Hyper Geno art that you are practicing now should be Jetaforce. Kalili was even more shocked. You can even tell this. Are you a professor at the martial arts department? The guy did not reply and continued, Jetaforce focuses a lot on the speed, and you have made a lot of progress so that Momentum and Windbreak will bring you a step further. Really? Kalili was overjoyed but still could not believe him completely. I believe your linear acceleration should have reached 13 in fitness index and your muscle strength 12.5, so you're the perfect candidate for those 2. Stared at the middle-aged guy, unable to believe that he could even tell this. Her linear acceleration was 12.98 and her muscle strength was 12.51, almost exactly the same as what he said. At this point, Kalili had believed that middle-aged was a professor in martial arts department. She gladly thanked him and said, I will buy Momentum and Windbreak then. Kalili swiped her card and purchased those 2. Hansen and Jai Yanran regarded the middle-aged guy in surprise. He must not be an ordinary professor with such keen observation. Do you need my help? The guy asked Hansen and Jai Yanran. You should really use the professor's help. Kalili checked out the details of her newly purchased martial arts and felt they did suit her very well. I don't have any quota left. How about you? Jai Yanran said to Hansen. All I have is a C-class quota and it will not be really useful to me, so I'll pass, said Hansen. That's not right. Although advanced Hyper Geno arts are powerful, the foundation is also very important. Even C-class arts could lay a great foundation for many Hyper Geno arts. If you practice it well, it would even be helpful when you become an evolver or surpasser. The middle-aged man looked at Hansen and continued. I will recommend you to practice a C-class and you will find out how helpful it is. That makes a lot of sense. Genius, you should try it, suggested Kalili. Hansen shook his head, no, thank you. Hansen had just bought the 3-blade harpoon and mailed some money to his family. Now all that was left in his account was $200,000. Even if it was cheaper in a military school, the C-class martial art would still cost $500,000, so he did not really have the money. The professor meant well. And you need it anyway, so let's just purchase it, Jai Yanran also said. Bro, be honest, all I have is $200,000 at this point. I cannot afford that, Hansen had to say. That's fine, I have it. Jai Yanran smiled and transferred $500,000 to him. Since my girlfriend is rich, I'll get it then. Hansen did not refuse and turned to the middle-aged man. Professor, what's the C-class Hyper Geno art that you recommend? After going back to his dorm, Hansen checked out the details of E-Blast that he just purchased, playing with a bottle of purple Geno solution in his other hand. This is neat for a C-class martial art. Hansen was surprised. He had little hope for a C-class martial art, but this one was even more complicated than Spartacle. Maybe it's a C-class because it is very hard to practice, and the result is not great. Since it was in the military school and Hansen had purchased the martial arts from the vending machine, he did not suspect there to be any issue. Most importantly, after he had checked out E-Blast, he was immediately attracted by the content. It was exactly something he would have wanted. But after checking it out, Hansen did not immediately start to practice E-Blast, nor did he use the Geno solution. He locked them all in his locker. Although E-Blast did not seem to have any problems, Hansen felt that the middle-aged man acted weirdly. As observant as Hansen, he could even tell that the middle-aged man came for him, and helping Kalili pick her Hyper Geno arts was merely a cover. Therefore, Hansen did not immediately start to learn E-Blast. Hansen was not wrong. The middle-aged man was in fact Bai Yishan from the St. Hall. And the E-Blast bought by Han Sen was the Yin-Yang Blast invented by Bai. Bai Yishan believed that Han Sen was the perfect candidate to practice Yin-Yang Blast. He had tried the official way and did not get Han Sen's consent. In a few days, the Saint Hall would pass the resolution to ban Yin-Yang Blast. At that time, even Bai Yishan himself could not teach Yin-Yang Blast to anyone else. Using a banned Hyper-Geno art was a severe crime in the Alliance, and the punishments included death sentence. So, Bai Yishans had to make Han Sen learn E-Blast in these few days. Those who had practiced the Hyper-Geno art before it was banned would be exempt from the law. Originally, Bai Yishan did not want to use this method. However, he had no time to prove himself in the Saint Hall and had to make Han Sen learn. In the next 2 days, Bai Yishan was observing Han Sen through the on-campus cameras. His face darkened, because obviously Han Sen did not use the Geno solution or practice Yin-Yang Blast. Otherwise Han Sen's features would have certain change. As the inventor of Yin-Yang Blast, Bai Yishans knew that very well. What's wrong? Why haven't he practiced Yin-Yang Blast? Bai Yishan became nervous. He had applied for the eligibility to practice Yin-Yang Blast on behalf of Han Sen as a volunteer. As soon as the Saint Hall banned Yin-Yang Blast, they would collect the copy of Yin-Yang Blast from Han Sen and ask him to sign a non-disclosure agreement. If at that point, Han Sen still had not used the Geno solution, then the solution would be collected as well. So after that, even if he remembered the tutorial of Yin-Yang Blast, without the special solution, he would not be able to succeed. When Bai Yishan was feeling nervous about it, he saw Han Sen walking towards the teleport station, wanting to enter God's sanctuary. Bai Yishan panicked. The resolution would be passed in the Saint Hall in 2 days. If Han Sen went to God's sanctuary, he would lose his last opportunity to practice Yin-Yang Blast. Bai Yishan had to go stop Han Sen. Han Sen. Bai Yishan stopped Han Sen before he went in the teleport station. You are. Han Sen recognized Bai Yishan but did not know what his name was. My last name is Bai, and we've met the other at the martial arts store. I recommended you to buy E-Blast. Why didn't you start practicing? Bai Yishan didn't even think that much at this point. With this question Han Sen was even more certain that Bai Yishan had some agenda. Professor Bai, I'm sorry I don't really have time. I'll practice it later, said Han Sen casually. No, you have to start practicing within 2 days, Bai Yishan said hurriedly. And why is that? Asked the Han Sen, staring at Bai Yishan. Bai Yishan knew that it was out of the question to cheat him into practicing Yin-Yang Blast. He hesitated and said, I'm sorry, Han Sen. I had to do that. You're the most suitable candidate among everyone I've seen, and you refused my offer to come to the Saint Hall. I just did not want to see Yin-Yang Blast banned, Bai Yishan said apologetically. Hearing Bai Yishan, Han Sen had 1,000 thoughts in a sudden. This is a surpasser and a Meister at the Saint Hall. He had been studying martial arts for years and is a walking treasure. God won't even forgive me if I don't blackmail him. Han Sen have checked Bai Yishan's ID and searched him on the Skynet. A celebrity like him had millions of photos online. Han Sen smiled and threw a gaze at Bai Yishan. He thought, don't blame me. You're the one who had the wrong idea first. That will be all for now. I hope you find this story interesting. Leave a like, subscribe, and enable notifications so you won't miss the next part of this story. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.